Well, welcome to the PSBTA's webinar on deployables. And my name is Jeff Johnson. I am one of the original board members for FirstNet and one of the legislative founders for FirstNet. And as a retired fire chief, I get to view firsthand how effective FirstNet has been. And a big part of why this network is effective is the deployables. I think it's probably one of the most misunderstood parts of FirstNet, and we have with us today Fire Chief retired Fred Scalera out of Nutley, New Jersey. And not only is Fred a great guy because he's a fire chief, but Fred is the original visionary that developed the deployables program within FirstNet. And Fred has a long history with deployables. And even going back before that, he was involved nationally on public safety communications. So Chief Scalera, welcome to our webinar. And if you would take just a couple minutes and give those folks that may not know you just a brief synopsis of your career history.
Sure, thanks, Chief. So welcome, everybody. As you know, my name is Fred Scalera. So I just give you a brief history. So I was fire chief in Nutley, New Jersey, retired after 30, became director of the Sheriff's Department for a couple of years. I was chairman of Homeland Security and also the deputy speaker of the legislature, 9/11, Katrina, and really got into network operations, met Jeff during the D block auction and then the FirstNet legislation. And then I actually was requested to build the Early Builder project. It was a $50 million project of deployables. And then part of what I created went into the RFP that AT&T responded to. So long history and working with Chief Johnson and others from almost the beginning of time on this. So thank you, Chief.
Well, Fred, I think a lot of people think that you may be one of three identical twins because you're everywhere all the time. You're at this meeting and at that conference, and you're on every major emergency. And I don't know how you find time to do it, Fred, but would you mind talking about what the original vision was for deployables at FirstNet and kind of how it came about, and then just give us kind of a picture of where we are today.
Sure, Chief. So when I first came on board, and I love telling the story that I was the first outside employee hired the day the contract got signed to come help build the, we didn't have the Response Operations Group, but we didn't know what it was going to be called with that team. And in the FirstNet, the way the bid went in and the contract was signed, the FirstNet Authority had put it in, so this was a lending library. So if you thought you needed a SatCOLT or you thought you needed something, you would go in and check it out and take it. And that doesn't work for public safety and fire because necessarily people that checked it out may not need it, and the person that needed it wouldn't have it available. So
Right.
we actually, thanks to, and a lot of thanks to Jim Bugel and team, we had a lot of meetings with the FirstNet Authority and got that changed to where it would be triaged and a process and who needs it, how to need it, and how to request it. We're going to go through that so that the proper agencies that are in need of the equipment, it's truly available for them when they need it.
So Fred, as a board member on that original board when we were developing the RFP for competitive bid, one thing the entire board understood was 100% coverage in America is just not feasible. Like I can just speak to Oregon, my home. There's canyons in Oregon, you can't even get a sat view on a regular basis. And oddly enough, or not so oddly enough, that's where the wildfires occur. That's where a lot of natural disasters occur outside of population centers. So, we knew we would need some kind of a deployable matrix and some functionality for deployables. But what was a surprise to me is just how big of a deal it was. Like this is critical to FirstNet's success. How often is it used and how big is it? And can you give us an idea about some of the scope and what kind of team you bring to the game?
Sure. So can we advance to slide 2, please? Perfect. Thank you. So let's talk about the team first. So when I was asked to create this team, I had to hire AT&T employees. That did not work out well. They didn't know public safety. They weren't 24/7. So our team is all 24/7. Most of them average 28 years of public safety experience, and they're either fire law enforcement, military, medical, but they have to come from public safety background. It was easier to bring public safety people to understand what we needed to do for public safety and train them how to respond, instead of trying to take people that were just technology people trying to do the response program. So
Yeah.
this team here in front of you, and you can see some of the equipment, travels last year. So our first response in the first year, we had about, I think, 60 responses. We just broke this past year 2,500 triage and response programs this year. So it's definitely increased. And from our original 72, we're over 183 dedicated FirstNet assets and a couple hundred of the AT&T assets to play into this. So we've really built a program of assets that is second to none to respond across the country. In fact, we are live doing a lot of work out at the wildfires in California right now.
So Fred, as a fire chief, you know that we locate fire stations and staff engines and whatnot based on three factors: concentration, distribution, and unit reliability. So we have 183 assets in the FirstNet deployable program. How busy are they, Fred?
So I would say there's about 20 assets a day on the air, someplace in the country. So whether it's a planned event, an emergency, a disaster, and we work every national security event. We work the big game. We work Formula Ones, any type of support that public safety needs, and we'll get into requesting and all. We will come out and support them. So as you can see in the one picture that's still up, the communications vehicle, that serves multiple places and travels all over the country. We have 2 COML working stations in there. It's got satellite, direct TV, all the different features, equipment, so that when we pull up, if you don't have comms, we can build that comms. We can do, there's a TV screen behind you see there where their heads are. We can do briefings on there. We do the United Nations and other big events, and that truck becomes the main talking point every morning. The briefings are done off of it, whether it's the big game or it's some other event. So we're very, very supportive in making sure public safety gets the comms they need, what they need, and how they need it. In fact, we'll talk about New York City this year for the ball drop. We had hurricanes and storms come through, and we actually have a team out there on standby, and we work out of our AT&T store. We have fiber, and we connect up our units if it's needed, things like that. Well, the storm got so bad, they didn't know what to do. Our AT&T store, we turned it into the command center for all of New York City during the storm because everybody was working outside or in the field in a
Wow.
mobile truck, and we moved them in. And we do things that nobody else does. Let me give you one other great story, Chief, right? We had the big hurricanes coming through Georgia and all last year. So in Georgia, and we're not there just to bring you a phone or a SatCOLT or those things, but a tree falls on a generator at an EOC 911 center. They're totally out. We
Right.
get a call and said, hey, can we help them out? We actually get a generator team to deploy the proper size generator. They get out and meet with them. The ROD team's been on site supporting them already. And our team got there and said, hey, we could fix this generator for you. And the AT&T engineers fixed that generator and left the spare there. So it's not just about comms. It's not just about going to fires. But if you're a FirstNet customer, we're all in on supporting you.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Fred, there's like multiple types of how we classify events, but there's planned events and emergent events, right? Like if I know of one situation where there's a parade that tends to overwhelm a community and they know it, or Pendleton, Oregon, when they have the Pendleton Roundup, that is going to overwhelm the network without some kind of support. They can tell us weeks or months in advance, I'm going to need some FirstNet support. And that goes on the board and in comes the team. And then also the emergent events. So can you talk about both planned and emergent? And when you talk about emergent, um, how fast can we get a team out the door, and a little bit on that?
So, okay, Lauren, bring up the next slide for me also. So let's talk about the whole process, right? And everything that we do and plan the
Yeah.
emergencies. So this is just some numbers about, went the wrong way on my slides, hold on. Oh, the slide I want is not here. That's okay. I'm on an old deck, so I'll work off this. I apologize. So here we have the 50 states, the territories. It's 24/7. We'll talk about FirstNet Central, how to request it, planned events, unplanned events, emergencies, resources, and let's talk about that. So a planned event, any customer can put a request in for support for planned event. We will come out if we need to. It can be done virtually, but most of the time when we're doing the big game, we're doing national security events, we are out there in person. I just came back from doing planning in Guam and Saipan. We cover all the territories. So don't think we don't cover everybody that's a territory or a state, but we will come out and do the planning. We were able to not only bring out deployables, but we can adjust the network. We can make live changes to that network. We can do multiple different things to give you support for that incident, redirecting it, directing panels down, doing electronic tilts. And then if not, we can deploy deployables for resiliency, for different type things. I talk about Sturgis all the time. Sturgis is a singular site, and this is Big Run. There's only one site that covers that town. We put out deployables in hot standby. So if something happened to that site, we bring your communications back up. And we do that for all national security events and big events. And let me just say something. Everything we do for planning, response, and back and forth is all at no cost. That is all part of the contract that AT&T has with FirstNet to do that. So, and also let me talk about the authority. When we're doing these national security events, the authority comes out to support us also. And the great thing is when we have to have a kick and a MAC and all these things, so the MAC that's federally supported, a FirstNet authority person sits in there, and we sit over in the kick, and we're able to coordinate from end to end. And that's some of the benefits also of being on FirstNet and being able to get those coordinated for those planned events. Going over, go ahead, Chief. I was going to
No,
remove you.
Chief, I was going to say, you mentioned comms. Well, just getting down to base level for some people that don't spend as much time in this as you or I, comms means FirstNet. Comms means if you have a FirstNet phone or device, we bring a network that creates FirstNet anywhere that you need it. And that's what it is. And it's all connected how? How do we put up a network in the middle of nowhere and have my FirstNet phone seem like I'm sitting right under a tower?
Yeah. And this deployable you're looking at is one of the ones I built during the pilot. So we have multiple different types. But that unit especially, and I like telling this story, Chief, and it was, I think it was in Oregon or Washington State, too many events, but it was a small fire department, subscriber paid 15 members, and they were out. They only had one engine, Chief, that was it, but
Yep.
that town was
Yep.
out. Well, this unit here, we couldn't get the big trucks through, but this gets pulled by a 4x4, and we brought this up, set it up, and I want to tell you, we got a card with all 15 firefighters that signed it to us saying, thank you. We only thought big, large agencies would get that support. Large, small, wherever you are, we are going to support you.
So if my fire department, regardless of size, if we're an agency account, meaning we've signed up for FirstNet, and FirstNet is a regular cell phone on a daily basis, except it has ruthless priority and preemption. It's engineered into the network. You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to wait. You don't need a card in your pocket. You pick it up and use it. The network knows who you are. The network knows what you do, and priorities built into that network. So on a daily basis, it's a cell phone, right? I can call my wife. I can call wherever I want to call. But during an emergency, there's functionality built into the technology that makes sure that public safety always has a priority. And that happens with deployables or on the fixed static terrestrial network. Is that true?
That's true. And you brought up one point there I want to bring out, Chief. So when we put these assets up for public safety, there's a feature that was included in the contract that they are locked down for public safety only, but any customer on any carrier can call 911 through our units. And that was part of it. So citizens can't call their grandparents, tie up the spectrum. It's very little, but they can call for 911 help. When we put these assets out supporting public safety, we're also supporting the consumer by always able to call 911, Chief, and that's another important factor.
Well, I love that, Fred. I'm glad you raised that. There was an event where your team had done a deployment of a compact rapid deployable outside of Canyonville, Oregon. Of course, if it happens in Oregon, I'm likely to hear about it. And you had a CRD creating FirstNet coverage in a place there was no coverage by any carrier, period. And good luck, frankly, getting much of a satellite shot out of that canyon. It was like this CRD was like in the one spot. There was a car accident not long after this was set up. It started a wildfire, and a passerby was able to call 911 over the FirstNet CRD and get an immediate fire attack on that fire. And to your point, this is about public safety. So when the general public is driving by one of your assets, I don't care if they're Verizon or T-Mobile, they can call
Right.
911 over that network. And I think that was a wonderful ad for the FirstNet authority. And I have tremendous appreciation for how AT&T, the contractor, has executed against that. Fred, you mentioned FirstNet Central. So what is that? What is FirstNet Central and what does that mean to your average FirstNet user?
So go to the next slide because I want to make sure um, we have one on that. Yep, how we work. Go ahead. Next slide. That's the request. And Chief, we'll come back to emergencies here. There is a
Yeah,
slide on FirstNet Central. Go to this. Can you scroll up, Laura? So stop there and then let's stop there and have first, Chief, before that. So I just want to give you the breadth of our presence. Nope, stay with the one you were on, the map. That's
yeah.
our presence, by the way, across the country. The red dots are all our main warehouses, large supplies of equipment. But that is our presence across just with the FirstNet assets, not adding in all the other assets, and all of these dots aren't singular. They could have SatCOLTs, they could have CRDs, they could have mini CRDs, but that is the way we are mapped across the country. Kind of like and talking about the fire service move ups, and we can do move ups and bring the units where we need it and slide other units over from where they are. And that's kind of our current form factor. And we will be advancing by another 25 to 30 AT&T NDR asset or FirstNet assets this year, also about another 30 different types. So that picture will be growing. But I wanted to get to the FirstNet Central slide. Keep going up. I know I'm making you move around there, but nope, keep going. We'll come back to those. Go to the FirstNet Central slide. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Yep, next one. There we go. Oh, one back. So let's talk about FirstNet Central, and this is a very important factor. When we first launched, the only way you could reach us was calling an 800 number. And when you called, you had to give your agency name, your information, you had to go all through it. And it gets backed up during emergencies, the amount of calls that call takers could take. So we spent a lot of money to create what's called FirstNet Central. So FirstNet Central does a lot of different things. One is you could go in and request the deployable seamlessly. When you log into your account, you can go in and request the deployable, and within minutes, it's at the ROG desk, the NDR team, and our Global Technology Operations Center seamlessly, and we start work. And you'll find out that we accepted it, what's going on. You'll get text messages and emails on it, but it's a great, great process for the deployables. But FirstNet Central does more than that. If you're a FirstNet agency, not subscriber paid, unfortunately, for that, but if you're an agency, you can log in and you can actually see what the network looks like in your area. So you have a disaster coming through, you have a hurricane coming through, you have tornadoes coming through, you have an earthquake. You can log in and you'll see what sites are in service, what sites are out of service. And not only that, when we spawned out, whether we're deploying a CRD, a mini CRD, or a SatCOLT, they will then appear on that map. So you'll also see where we're filling in the network that was out. So that is something that's offered by nobody. We let you see, I call it, under the umbrella, to see what is actually happening with the network in your area. To be able to do this, right, the admin controls admin rights and all the big priorities. But as an uplift manager, and we'll talk about that, but as an uplift manager, you can put in requests. You can go see what the network looks like. You can't make the changes. That's an account manager, an admin, right? Or uplift manager. And that's another great feature that during states of emergency, that you can uplift specific people to a higher priority. So let's say it's a fire, you could uplift the chiefs, the sergeants, and lieutenants. You don't uplift all 500 people, because if you did that, they're all at the same level, but you uplift the key personnel that need the extra speed to get through that network. So you might be just 3 firefighters, but the chief can go in a circuit ahead of you if you needed to. So there's a lot of great things that happen in FirstNet Central. And that could be a whole training session on its own. I'm just giving you the high level on that.
I'm with you. And how fast does that happen? So I go in there to FirstNet Central, I put in for my information, I need a deployable. How fast does that happen, Fred?
So we get it within minutes. It's triaged within about 20 minutes. and a decision's been made whether we were able to adjust the network, it was power only, a generator went out, or we need to send a deployable. In 20 minutes, a team comes together from the ROG team, our network disaster recovery team, which is called NDR, the Global Technology Operations Center, are all on in live time and in 20 minutes. And I can tell you, when we first started this project, Chief, it took 2 hours to make a triage. We can do it
Right.
in under 20 minutes now with all of the proper resources, and come back and you will get a notice of it's been recovered, it's been restored, the deployable's on the way. You will get all that automatically sent to you as decisions are made from that triage.
And I happen to know, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, but at ROG, when you call and you go into FirstNet Central and they have this information, they're looking live at the network. And they know how many bars of coverage you do and don't have, and what kind of throughput, what kind of latency. So they can adjust, they can actually adjust the towers, the network, the panels
Mhm.
in many cases and resolve the issue that you may have. If it's a fringe issue, or if they can't, out come the deployables. And Fred, how does your team make decisions about what you get? Because if you wouldn't mind talking a bit about the farm animals, we have cows and colts, and so
Sure.
how do they make those decisions?
So there's multiple ways, right? So what is the best for you for that time? As I was stating, when we do the triage, if it's only because there's a power outage, I can get a generator out there. And listen, the more I can bring up a terrestrial tower, the
Yeah,
better coverage, right? Remember, a
right.
SatCOLT's not going to do exactly what a tower does. Speeds are differently because it's on satellite, it's not on fiber. But we can go from that, and there's a lot of times, so it could be power restoral, it could be network restoral, it could be one tower's down and we can adjust another tower to do overlapping coverage. Next could be a SatCOLT, or it could be a CRD or a mini CRD, right? So a cow is part of the market team, right? They come out, they go on fiber, they can do different things. A SatCOLT is a cell on light trucks, right? So that's how we handle a SatCOLT. The CRD, which again was, one of the things that was responsible for in the contract, and I helped, honestly design where we are today with our vendor for the CRD, and we're launching a new version this quarter, a brand new version of that, much more powerful, more capacity. But that unit can also be owned and purchased. We have about 700 CRDs or mini CRDs that agency owns across the country. You purchase them. It's your network. Move it where you need it. You send us an email, state we're deploying it. We do the 911 configuration because maybe you went from one county to another county or one state to another state and you brought on mutual aid. We go in, we change the 911 provisioning. We know you're online, and it'll appear on the map. So if you went from Oregon to Washington and you brought it there, when you bring online the state of Washington, you'll see it online if you're in your FirstNet Central, and you'll also have the 911 configuration. We'll get that, so it goes to the right 911 center. That is all done almost seamlessly and timely in multiple different ways. So again, we have multiple ways to respond, and then the comms vehicles and some of the other things that play into this, they're more delayed. They're not going to get there. But I should cover also, Chief, we didn't cover this, that under our contract, we're supposed to be on scene within 14 hours and operational.
Right.
Our average over last year is 8.5 hours.
Yeah.
So, sometimes we're over, we're under, but 8.5 is the average of having an asset on scene for an emergency.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. How long can I use them? So out here in the West, wildfire is a big issue, and the last thing I want to talk about is LA when we get there. But Fred, how long can I keep these things? I asked for uh, I asked for an asset, and how long can I keep it?
So I will tell you, the longest one we still did was a hurricane in Florida. Gulf County, Florida was decimated. I mean, they had nothing there. They had no communications or anything. And I love telling this. So we send out a SatCOLT. We get there. We take a cradle point router, hook it up to their network. We were able to bring the desk live. We took 911 and transferred over to FirstNet phones, and they were live. And then that SatCOLT, tying this together, FEMA sent in a satellite-based 911 system, got them live, but that truck stayed there for almost 13 months before they were totally brought whole. We fueled that truck every other day and kept it there until Gulf County was comfortable and all their network was back up.
Well, I think that was some brilliance on the design team's part for this. When wildfires swept through Oregon, literally you could go town to town to town, and there'd be a FirstNet asset, and then another one, and they're all lacing together, and FirstNet's working fabulous. Now, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this today are going, "Well, that's fine. It could be there 13 months or a month or a day or whatever it takes, but how much does that cost me?"
That costs you nothing. We fuel that every other day. We maintain it. And by the way, when we drop an asset off, it runs off we bring another generator. So it's running off the generator. If that generator happens to fail, it fails over to the truck generator. If the truck generator fails, it fails over to the batteries inside that truck. And we get alerts and alarms going, oh, we're on the truck generator. Let's get somebody out. But they still have
Right.
time on that. For some reason, because of road closures and problems, then it'll go over to battery. But we very rarely have low total loss of fuel or power with the process that we use for redundancy.
And even if you had some freak event like that happen, there's 183 of them. There's more fire engines in the station, and in they come. Things happen, but I think that is phenomenal. Fred, do you
And
mind
now,
just take? Go ahead.
what I want to say, Chief, we are getting better now with all of the AT&T assets now. We're actually building new ones with different types of satellites, different types of equipment. So besides leaving a SatCOLT permanently in place, we can bring these new, they're called LCT trailers, in place and leave that longer term. And we can connect it to fiber or satellite, and it can do much more than, and we can leave that in place because then we can plug it in, we can do different things, and we leave the SatCOLT to be ready for another response. So we are building other processes also.
And Chief, if I buy my own CRD, if I buy customer owned and maintained, if I buy my own, and that happens to be nearby a FirstNet deployable asset, your team laces those together in a way that eliminates interference and resolves problems, correct?
That is correct. So we can link those and we make sure that they do handoffs from unit to unit to unit, so that you will be seamless whether you go from a macro network to a SatCOLT to a CRD. All of that will be seamless and you should carry across that. Now, the only gap is if there's a break, the SatCOLT service ended here and the CRD picked up over here, you might have a
Yeah.
gap, but as soon as you get to the next site, you are back live on our network
Fred, in
automatically.
60 seconds, LA's on everybody's mind today. In 60 seconds, what are you guys doing out there for deployables in California today?
So the ROG team has been live going actually EOC to EOC and doing things from, in building to other things, dropping off CRDs, doing what they need, getting equipment sent out. Then we have SatCOLTs. We have, I think we have 8 SatCOLTs also on air at this time. And then with the new process, we just brought up some of the LCTs on fiber, and we are standing up 2 super cows to be able to be capacity. They will stay in place, these super cows now that we're building, which will be online the next day or two, right? We build a process. They
Yeah.
will be staying there until the terrestrial network is back up. So they will be staying long term. If it's 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, but by doing these new smaller LCTs, we can then free up the SatCOLT for some of the responses or move LCTs. Once we get the super cows in place, take those LCTs and do something else. So we build the process as we go and expand it and make it more resilient.
Well, Chief, you've heard me say way too many times, what makes FirstNet different is uh, FirstNet has a plan. You can find the plan, you can contribute to the plan, you can give your feedback to the FirstNet authority about what the plan should be. You have a plan, you have a promise. The promise in the form of over 1,200 pages of contract between the federal government's FirstNet authority and AT&T as the contract. And lastly, you have public safety oversight, which is the board that governs FirstNet actually has active first responders sitting on it. And while I say you have a plan, a promise, and public safety oversight, another differentiator is in fact ROG, the Response Operation Group, all the deployables, and a dedicated team, as you said, of public safety professionals delivering it. And it is a moral imperative on this team that we deliver for public safety, because not only are the lives of the civilians we protect at risk, but so are the responders who we're here to serve. Chief Scalera, I just want to thank you, sir, for your service. I don't think you've slept in the last 8 years, and I just want to thank you, sir, for your timeless and tireless service. So thank you for what you've built, and I want to thank all the people for tuning in and listening to us talk today about FirstNet and the deployable network. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.